Good evening, everyone, and Happy New Year from Dinar Updates and everyone here on the call. Happy New Year to you guys, and it's 2016 was a great year. 2017 is looking even better for us, I believe. Good evening, Mr. White and Rcookie and Mr. Daytrader. How are you guys?
Good evening. Well, Happy New Year.
Good evening, Mr. Hutch. Good to see you.
All right, there's been a lot of craziness going on. I'm just going to kind of go ahead and get into it, I guess, if you want here. And forgive me if my voice sounds a little funny. I'm kind of a little bit under the weather here. But there's been some craziness, and one of the things I'd like to talk, kind of rant about maybe or address, so to speak, there's been a number of things where we've seen some repeat articles come out. And I'll just mention them real quick. And what I'd like to try to do is let's find a way to help everyone understand how some of this works sometimes. So I'm going to start it out with this. I saw a few articles come out about the Mosul Dam, okay, just recently. NPR brought one article out. The New Yorker brought another article out. And it's the same thing that they were talking about, about, what was it, a year or so ago maybe, where they were talking about that. They brought the Italians in to make the repairs and so on and so on. But some people are thinking that this may stop the RV again. And so while there's people there that are trying to explain, no, it's just a reprint or it's a regurgitated thing or whatever the case may be. And then, of course, there's the others about where I'm trying to remember which the Egyptian publisher brought an article in, which may have been worded just a touch differently, but it basically seemed to be the same article. About
that was the Delete the Zeros article, right, Hutch?
Right. Yeah, that one there. I kind of look at it as an analogy like this, and that is this. And I'm going to pick on Rcookie for just a second. If a USC player, quarterback for USC.
Of course. Of course.
If a quarterback for
can't
USC
even let that wound heal one day. One day.
If a USC quarterback were to throw in the air a 99-yard touchdown in the air, longest throw in the history of college football, okay, and Sports Center on ESPN covers it, that's great news. That's the longest touchdown pass. And for the record, Rcookie, I didn't say who USC was playing, but let's say, for example, and I didn't talk about a field goal either, but ESPN covers it, all right, and then a week later, Fox Sports 1 comes on and talks about it again. Well, immediately, with the rationale that some of these people, have at times, they think, oh, geez, this guy just threw another touchdown the same way. This guy's really good. And then a month later, CBS comes on and talks about it, and they think, he's thrown another one. Instead of it being recognizing that it's regurgitated news, so to speak, they're thinking that it's happening again and again and again and again.
Right.
Comments?
Well, if you're
other than USC.
If you're following, well, first of all, if that guy was throwing a 99-yard pass, it probably was the SC quarterback, because that kid's got an arm. But
he really does.
Over and above that, people that are that out of date and out of touch are the ones that watch the Flintstones and thinks it's a documentary. I mean, the bottom line is that you got to follow. This is why we take such time to tell folks about, anybody telling you that the news is irrelevant or, no need to read the news and so forth. There's never more reason than right now, with all the activity and actions going on, to stay current with the news and know what's what. But Mr. White, you remember a while back the same thing? Well, it was Fox, right? That was reporting. How much later was it on the Ramadi? You remember that period?
Yeah, they actually went to some length. I mean, if we did not have the habit of checking the news articles first thing in the day by multiple sources as to what is happening in and out of Iraq, and if, like for myself, I check Rudolph out of Kurdistan, and they have an update on all the fighting, several articles a day, and you can see what time it is. If we didn't have, if we did not know what was actually happening that particular day, and I think we were talking to each other about it because I was looking at Fox News.
Probably were. Yeah.
And the producer, this wasn't just a 30-second spiel where somebody read something off a teleprompter. They went into footage and so forth, and what they were reporting was that Ramadi was under siege again.
Right.
That ISIS was banging at the front door, getting ready to overrun the thing. And I'm sitting there going, this they're talking like this is today. This is today. And they were.
Right.
That's the last time that thing ran. Because
right.
they didn't get the facts. And well, anyway,
I hope that people.
It's like right now. If you take something current today, there were articles all over the feeds today about and with quantities of 12,000 in this one group. Another group I think had 20-something thousand Iraqi citizens that were being returned to their homes outside of Mosul. Outside of Mosul. So you're not, when you turn on CNN and you turn on Fox and so forth, or any American news source, domestic news source, you're not seeing those kind of stories. It doesn't fit the current narrative right now about how chaotic the fighting is, and the battle plan's been delayed and obstructed and all kinds of things. So you got to just consider, and that's why those news feeds are so refreshing, because you're getting news from all over the world. You're getting German feeds, Australian, South African. I mean, you see news from all over where it might not have that either political or commercial bias slant to it. So.
Yeah, I totally agree. Hey, I want one more thing real quick, and it's a little confusing, and that's why I'd like to cover it. It's kind of out of our lineup, so to speak. But the article that came out, Iran's selling electricity to Iraq. Okay, and there's something in there that talks about the exchange rate. Well, they shut them. They pulled the plug, I guess. Right. Basically what they're doing is they're using the phrase exchange rate, and that type of thing, and it's got a lot of people worked up thinking that it's the exchange rate. They're talking so that we can all go to the bank and use, as the term is used loosely, cash in. And from what I'm understanding and reading, in certain areas, and some people are explaining that no, it's not talking about that. They just want a standard rate to charge for electricity, because the rate itself fluctuates so much. They want one, standard rate, if I understand that. You guys and Julian Washington is the one over on Facebook brought the article in, and he does a great job over there. And every week I thank Julian for all the hard work that he does there, along with all the other guys there on Facebook. But and I'd just like to clarify it so that it helps people understand what he's bringing in over there for them.
Jay,
can I add something? Can I add something to the?
Yes, sir. Go to it.
If you go back, what is it? I guess about 40 years ago, when the American hostages were from the U.S. Embassy in Tehran, when the Americans there were taken hostage. And as the United States started trying to communicate and trying to figure out what was going on in Tehran, they were having all type of difficulty finding out what was truly going on. And they had emissaries throughout the Middle East. They had the Saudis. They got the Israelis. They got Turkey. Even back then, Iraq. People all around Iran. Why couldn't the United States find out or get real-time information? And the problem was they had all type of State Department people that could speak different types of Arabic, some of the different dialects. But they did not have anybody that could speak what the Iranians were speaking, which is Farsi. Iranians are not Arabic. They speak Farsi. And the Arabs interpreters had a difficult time speaking with the Iranians at that time. Of course, this is 40-something years ago, okay? So where am I going with this? The simple word in the English language, exchange. Now try to back up and think about how we get through the translation the word exchange. It's coming out of Farsi, it's going into Arabic, and then it's being translated into English. An exchange is nothing more than people buying and selling stuff. But we see it so often in these articles, we see the word exchange. Well, that doesn't mean they're referring to what we're looking for, because that thing doesn't exist yet. So you got to take stuff into the context as to what they are speaking about. They're talking about electricity. They're not talking about currency.
Right. That's exactly right. Steve?
Well, I think there's two things. First of all, Iran has stated that the contract between Iran and Iraq for that electricity has expired. And, oh, by the way, you owe us about $1 billion.
Exactly.
Okay.
We're going to cut you off.
and so that they want to come to Iraq and renegotiate the contract. And, oh, by the way, remember about 3 weeks ago, we just lopped our currency. And so, therefore, our exchange rate is different than it was when we negotiated the first contract. And so now all they said was we have to take the new exchange rate into consideration in the negotiations for the next phase of us supplying electricity to Iraq.
Right. I think that clears it up. That's both of you guys did a great job. Rcookie, any comments?
No, that's actually you cannot do a better job than those two. I mean, It gives the depth of the answer. So,
I think so too. All right, I'm gonna move in. We've got a great number of questions. There's some questions that are a little. In fact, one of the, like I said, Julian over on the Facebook side had that question, and then just in time came into our news. Our chat room this evening when we were doing our news time and brought in the same question, so I wanted to recognize Jeff just in time as well for the same question there. There's a couple of other questions, and you've got one also, Rcookie, that came in, and I'm going to go ahead and throw these out, and let's go ahead and clear the air on them, so to speak, if you guys would like. Let me find them here. That one I want to save because it ties into an article. This comes from Baxter. Just real quick, and just let's, if we can give some type of quick answer possibly. When an increase in value occurs, does anyone know exactly where the money is coming from to exchange us out? I've heard oil credits, the U.S. government, the banks, Iraq, and I've heard other ways as well. I think there's another one. And so his comment is when you walk into a Wells Fargo bank with your dinar and exchange it for $5 million USD, and you hand Wells Fargo your dinar, Wells Fargo certainly is going to want that money to come from somewhere. At least I would think so. Where's it coming from?
Okay, I want to answer his question.
Yep.
I want to answer his question with a question. You walk into Wells Fargo and you fill out a mortgage application for $250,000, and they stamp it approved, and they hand you a check for $250,000. So you go to the builder to pay for your home that was just built. Where did that $250,000 come from Wells Fargo? Do you think that they had $250,000 sitting back there in that vault waiting to approve your mortgage application? Or how about the $30,000 for some new truck? Do you think they have $30,000 sitting back there in your name? This is $30,000 I'm setting aside for Baxter's application for a new truck. No. When the exchange takes place, the banks do not have all this money just sitting back there. It's called fractional banking.
Right.
And there's a formula that they can create 10 times the amount of money that they have on hand, just based on what they have on deposit. And something else, I fly back from Puerto Plata in the Dominican Republic, or from Santiago or Santo Domingo, and I have extra Dominican Republic pesos in my pocket. And there's another 200 people on the airplane with me, and we all run over to the foreign exchange desk, either in Miami or in Atlanta, and we exchange these pesos. The Dominican Republic is broke. How did they pay for that exchange? They don't. There's no paying for it. It's exchange. They exchange it for sugar or what other assets the country has. Same for Mexico. How many thousand people fly in from Mexico into the United States with extra Mexican peso, and they go and they exchange it for U.S. dollars? Mexico is broke. How did they pay for that exchange? And I can just go on and on and on. Anyway,
yes,
somebody else can jump in.
I just leave mine at the bar at the last casino before I jump back on the cruise ship myself.
Heck of a tip.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, it's not worth
any
anything,
other comments?
So.
Well,
Exactly.
This is really not as difficult as what a lot of folks are saying. There's a lot of opinions about how this is going to work, but the reality of it is it's going to be just like any other foreign currency that is internationally tradable, that's internationally accepted. Okay, it's all based on a lot of things like liquidity and so forth. In other words, liquidity being how easy is it going to be for me, the bank, because I'm basically exchanging dollars for this currency, and how easy is it going to be for me at the bank, because I don't want to sit on this currency. I can, but I don't necessarily want to. So I'm going to move this currency. And so through the banking industry, there will be some bank that is very interested in purchasing that dinar, in other words, exchanging that dinar with the bank that you took it into. And I would not be surprised. There are a number of Iraqi banks right here in the United States. I would not be a bit surprised to see some of that currency end up in those Iraqi banks. This is
great answer.
This is just another international exchange transaction as far as the banking industry is concerned. The price that we're going to get is going to be based on how easily they think they're going to be able to move it, and that's why we talk about the spreads on what we're likely to see in the beginning, because it's a supply-demand world in the foreign exchange marketplace.
Great job.
Yep, great job. Okay, let's see what else we've got here. There's Megan Him. Dinar Massa had a question earlier. Was it today or yesterday, Rcookie?
It started yesterday and actually went into today as well. I actually had a couple of good questions, but
I'll throw this one in there to kind of go with it too. Mr. White just hit on my question. Would the guys briefly discuss how Iraq pays for an RV? And it's the same thing. I've seen a post, how much over 10 or 20 cents, but they're actually having to pay for an RV, and there are dinars that we hold simply going back to cash reserves or other countries, or the U.S. Treasury, with Iraq not having to technically pay for the RV. See, that sounds like old guru stuff that I used to listen to when I first started listening to this, with all the guy who thought he was dynamite.
Oh, TNT? Tony?
I didn't say it. You did.
You mean Mr. Hot Dog?
Yeah, Mr. Hot Dog. That's right.
Guys, if you go to the IMF website and just start really digging, what you're going to find is that the United States at any point in time only has several $1 billion of currency in actual circulation. And yet, throughout the world, there's effectively trillions of dollars, U.S. dollars, in the reserves of these central banks of these other countries. But it's electronic. And it's the same thing with the Bank of International Settlements. That Bank of International Settlements is an exchange organization. So when you order something in Europe, if you've got a contract, let's say that someone in Europe has a contract with IBM here in the United States, and Europe wants to pay for the IBM products, that the Bank of International Settlements is the middleman in that process. That's where the transaction takes place from euros to U.S. dollars or vice versa. So somewhere along the line, the Bank of International Settlements has to have currency, all the currencies of the world, because they are the exchange center, if you will, for trade. This is no different.
Totally agree.
Yep.
Okay. Let's one last question here, and it'll serve as a transition, so to speak. Our first article that we brought into the chat room had a couple of different versions. It's called Invitation to Support and Strengthen the Dinar Purchasing. There's a Bing translation and I suppose it's a Google translation. It's got rates posted in it, that type of thing. And so F. Metz comes in with a question and says, I've had this currency since 2003 while over there. Haven't followed all of this for too long, so trying to catch up on the learning curve. First off, thank you for your service to F. Metz. But to me, he continues on, either they are on sanctions or they are not. Currency was devalued because of the war. Once sanctions are done, currency should go back to the normal rate, which in their case was $3.22. I don't really think that their budget really has anything to do with it. I think it's more of a central bank of Iraq and the UN. And then, of course, that ties into the article that we're talking about, that we're bringing in and talking about right now. And I know Mr. White had some cover on it, and I think all of you guys do. And it's from Hashemi, who talks about this in this article. Guys?
Okay. Up until April of 2000, the Iraqi dinar floated in the international marketplace just like all of the rest of the international current tradable currencies. And its valuation against the U.S. dollar moved anywhere from like $2.60 and actually at one point got to $3.97. Then Saddam Hussein, from about December of 2001 through April of 2004, fixed the Iraqi dinar at $3.22. And that's the number that everyone keeps referring to, but that was not an internationally recognized rate. They allowed it to happen. The IMF allowed it to happen, so did the BIS. But it was not a rate that was approved by those organizations.
That's right, and I'm glad you brought that up. It's an excellent point.
And then when the sanctions were put in place, we know that in other words, the currency today is an imposed rate, and it's going to stay that way until the point in time that Iraq is released from these sanctions and is able to reinstate their currency. But that's where the 322 came from, even though it was not an internationally recognized and approved rate. By the way, that particular article, they were talking history, not future. And
yeah, it was historical data, and a lot of people just went bonkers real quick that this guy is talking. They're going to bring the rate out. It's going to be 322 and so on. And the guy was just giving a bit of history more than anything else.
Well, and you can see that if you take a look at what the population figure was that was used in the article.
Right.
They said there were 8 million Iraqis.
Right, and the first thing I did is went and looked at, what the population was further, in, or later, or what it is now.
There's 33 million.
Exactly.
Iraqis today. And that's an estimate because after ISIS showed up, we don't know because there's no way to do a census at this point.
Right. Mr. White?
Well, that article does give you some insight as to what will happen when the central bank makes its move. That article talks about settling foreign remittances and credits in the IQD. And that's what all these comments are, making it international. When it goes international and so forth, first of all, it's already international. It's the currency of a sovereign country. And there are numerous currency swaps in place between Iraq and other countries where other countries have accepted the IQD for exchange of other assets. But the article talks about the central bank settling foreign remittances. And in my opinion, that is the button that's going to be pushed. And it's going to be through, and again, in my opinion, as the Citibank Iraq has alluded to, Mr. Flannery has spoken about removing those obstacles that are in place that's preventing the free movement of the Iraqi currency around the globe. And when those obstacles, agreements with other countries, agreements with international banks are in place, and the CBI decides at what value, which I think they've already determined a value, that at what value the IQD will be exchanged in settling foreign remittances, that's the day we're looking for. And in my opinion, we have a good reason. We have a lot of good reasons to think that that's coming very soon. But I like that. I like that article. To me, it gives a lot of insight.
And at that point, Alan, what happens is just like today. What happens today is the UN posts twice bi-monthly, twice a month, the UN operational rates, and those are the rates that are used in trade by the Bank of International Settlements on the exchanges. And so they're good for 15 days because international currencies, internationally tradable currencies, trade to different values every single day and all throughout that 24-hour period. And so from a trading perspective, those are the rates that are used for international trade. So once a value is set in that table from the UN, that becomes the exchange rate that's used for 15 days. That's exactly what's going to happen with Iraq. They will be able to settle their remittances in IQD, and it will go through the BIS, and the exchange rate will be based on what comes out of that UN operational rates.
Thank you.
Great job,
yeah,
guys.
Good stuff. Rcookie?
No, I think that's enough for that. On that question. I mean, you can't you can't answer that better or more in depth, and I think that's
any
perfect.
clearer. Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's move on to Article 2, and it looks like that the financial finishes investigating the theft of 75 billion dinars. Rcookie, you want to run with that one?
Well, I mean, I just thought that was really important. First of all, not only obviously because of the the amounts that are involved, but with all of these statements, there's another article. Hutch, I don't remember if we ended up submitting that one, but there was another article that was talking about the U.S. Treasury rep that was basically patting the Iraqis on the back for the progress that they've made in the banking.
That's in there as well. They tie together.
Right, in the banking sector and what they've done as far as their technology, their world-class training, to bring them up to global standards, just everything, the services offered. I mean, the whole entire sector, and part of that is in the AML CFT stuff. And here's over and above. You guys remember that a couple weeks ago, the announcement that they had sort of snagged that politician that was over in the UAE with $200 million in state funds, inappropriately, and they got him, and they actually ended up wiring that money back into Iraqi state bank accounts. So it shows that all the mechanisms that they have in place are and their cooperation with these international agencies are starting to yield some results in as far as recovering their ability to recover state assets. And here's another example of the fact that this was a little sort of scheme that was set up, and they actually, when you read the article, they actually busted the people at the bank and the people that were involved in the scheme as well. So, and I mean, $75 billion. I mean, that's a pretty hefty number.
Yeah, good stuff, Mr. White or Steve.
No, that was great.
Changing culture, because culture used to be, I'm going to take my retirement early and head to the Caribbean. I'll just make a stop at the local bank and take what's not mine and see you all later. And that's
load it in the plane and go.
Yeah.
And good luck catching me.
Exactly. Okay. Well, the next one that we talked about, let me dig it up here, and we brought into the room as well. And that is, hang on a second here, about the 3 million housing units to end housing and the problem of unemployment. With that, one of the things, Rcookie, if you could, we didn't bring the poverty article in, but, all of this type of stuff may be good to kind of let's talk about a little bit at this point.
Oh, yeah. I mean, because that was one of the biggest, at least in my mind, if you're talking about impacting exchange rates, their publishing of their of the fact that they're going to form this this committee in coordination with the World Bank to address their poverty levels. And you guys remember going back into the 11 determinants and the rankings of those 11 exchange rate determinants. The fact that they're the second, they had the second greatest oil reserves in the world. It didn't even rank in that top 11. But things like the inflation rate, the national education level, their employment level, their poverty level, those kinds of things all did. They all factored into the exchange rate determinants. And so when you see them addressing the fact, and one of the things that they were outlining, and there was even news stories out today as well, is the fact that a lot of these people that prior to the ISIS situation that were not in a poverty level, where the government draws the line and says, okay, within this window you're considered to be in the poverty, in the poverty level. A lot of folks that before the ISIS situation happened were not in a poverty level, and obviously with ISIS's expansion within Iraq, people lost their jobs, people lost their homes, people lost property, and obviously has changed a lot of citizens. In addition to the harm that they've caused, they've caused them harm economically as well. So there's people who were not previously in a poverty level that now are, and conversely, even from articles that we saw today, there was one about Basra today, where there was 28,000 people are getting their their social security benefits re-reviewed because either they fall into that category that I just outlined where they weren't in a poverty level before and now they are, or vice versa. There are some people who were previously in a poverty level, but now when they've redrawn the lines government-wise, where they've redrawn the lines to where the poverty level is, they no longer qualify for those benefits. So they're, reviewing and revamping, what constitutes being at the poverty level or not. So all of these things have such a huge impact on their budget, what they have to pay out for these social benefits and their economy. So
and housing as well, that type of thing. And that's what we were, part of it was as well was talking about the doggone it.
The displaced, the IDP?
The 3 million housing units to end housing and the problem of the unemployment and that type of thing. Daytrader had brought in earlier to me an article, and it talked about World War II. When World War II, was over, in the United States, there were a lot of, you had a lot of people, a lot of kids that left into the Army and into the military, but they came back adults, and they wanted to live in their own homes and that type of thing when they came back. And it kind of ties into this somewhat. Daytrader, do you want to care to comment on a little bit of that or how it kind of correlates?
Sure. If you go back and look at Germany and Japan in World War II, for all of the years of the war, there was no home building. Everything got moved to the production of military weaponry, and not just in Germany and Japan, but here in the United States as well. Well, Germany and Japan, the destruction was just immense. But in all three of these countries, you had all of these young men and women. They'd been living at home. These were young people when they joined the wars. But they're coming home. The wars are over, and they've got no place to live other than with mom and dad. And that's kind of tough to get married and raise a family. So there was a really massive shortage of homes. And so what was done was a massive construction program that was put in place that created jobs for all of these people coming back, because there weren't enough jobs to place everyone. And so poverty was going to be a horrendous problem, more so in Germany and Japan, because their manufacturing was destroyed. I mean, much like what Iraq is going through today. And so the models that were used to recover Germany and Japan and even here in the United States is just going to be duplicated in Iraq. The difference that I see was, especially from this article, their focus is going to be on very large apartment complex, apartment and you call it townhomes or whatever you want to call it, but they're going to be very large complexes to create jobs for so many of these people who have no job today. At the same time, they're basically going to be building their own homes, if you will, and they're going to be paid to do it.
Right.
And then if you throw in with what's happening in the banking sector, what we're seeing is this influx of deposits into the banking sector. All of a sudden, these home loans start to be able to be funded. And so I think with the automatic deposits and that technology, the Dinar coming into play, and then the plan to rebuild these homes is going to be a huge boon to Iraq in dealing with both the poverty levels, the employment levels, and the housing levels, all in one fell swoop.
Yeah. And that's kind of what the article is about, and it's a good article. And then, like I said, what you brought in was, if you go and read the link, and I just put the link in the chat room, and I think someone put it over on the Facebook side as well.
And Hutch, that's just one article out about.
I know.
Probably 50.
Great. Right, but it's a great tie-in. It's a great way of showing what happened with other countries after the war. And there were so many different things that came into play. And like you said, the unemployment, which could lead to poverty, as opposed to let's put them to work building new homes for all these guys that have come back from the war now as adults, who want their own place to live and so on and so on. I thought it was just a great tie-in. Mr. White or Cookie, any comments?
No, I think that, Mr. White?
Nothing.
Okay. Let's see. Where are we at now? That's that one. So let's go to the next one here. Retirement revealed the launch date of the unified salary system. Or Cookie?
Hutch, we put that in there because that was something we didn't cover before on the last call. Right. And the theme of the last call was convergence reality, and it was just another, early 2017, early first quarter 2017, kind of earmark for things. And again, just another another convergence sign of all this activity going on in that sort of finite window in there.
Yeah, totally agree. Mr. White or Daytrader?
Those funds are going to be direct deposited as well. This is a massive influx of deposits into this banking industry, which is why I think in the ISX that we just article that we just saw that it was the banking industries that had 6, 7, and 8% gains in one day. These investors know this is happening.
Yep.
All righty. Well, then we'll move on to the next one here, and it's about central banks threatening to refer distressed owners to eliminate. Basically, the central bank on Thursday up troubled banks on how to respond to their requests to withdraw their deposits from them, take range of measures to the right. Or Cookie?
That basically was just dealing with the fact that any of these distressed banks, whether they're banks that were just performing poorly or going through the opening stages of liquidation or whatever stages they're in, that the fact that and you see these stories, guys, every day about these Iraqi citizens that put their money in these banks and they don't have access to it. They can't withdraw the money. And it used to be a time when we just thought that was just the sort of with no rhyme or reason to it, just a sort of lay of the land. But then we actually just recently read stories about that's in direct mandate as a result of the liquidity crisis that's there. They've got sort of caps on what depositors are able to get out as far as hard currency goes at any one given visit or whatever. So that's what that is basically talking about, is just a guarantee from the central bank to any of these folks that have money in banks that are experiencing difficulties.
Okay, cool. Day or Mr. White?
Nothing.
No, that's good.
Okay. All righty. Let's get on to what would be my last one here. Low monthly inflation rates and the annual report in November. Ministry of Planning is talking about the low annual inflation index and what their report was through November. It's pretty incredible over there, wouldn't you say?
I think you guys. I think this is one of the biggest teller, as far as metrics and analytics that we see constantly with the inflation rate. But what was cool about this article, they actually in here, and this refers back to that question, Hutch, that Dinar Massa asked me earlier about, and the question was basically, his question was about, well, how isn't the pressure just mounting on a daily basis with the application of the 2010 customs and tariffs, to these goods on a country that does so much importing, on these goods getting into the country, doesn't that put more pressure on the citizens to be able to afford? Do we have any evidence of any kind of price reductions and that kind of a thing. And this article goes out of its way to talk about not only, the fact that they curbed inflation from October to November by 0.7%, but they're a full percentage point down, November to November, 2015 to 2016. And when you look at the sector, this is the part that was even more amazing, is the numbers that they assert in here for the different consumer, the CPI, consumer pricing index in these different sectors. When you see things like food is down, and not by a little bit, it was 1.7%. Housing is down by 1.5. Transportation, health, education, entertainment. So I guess what this report is kind of showing is the fact that, yes, the goods that are getting into the country are seeing, new and higher tax rates applied to them, but it's not matriculating down to the citizen as of yet, to the point where, it's creating inflation environment, because, their inflation is in check. I mean, to the point where it's hovering like around zero. So, and in the important areas, I mean, guys, you remember last week when we had the reports on, the automobiles are being discounted by 40 to 50%. The telecommunications are being discounted. Electricity in certain regions is being discounted. So they're getting some relief, obviously, because the inflation levels and the CPI would not be showing the kind of numbers it did if these customs and tariffs were at a point where it was crippling them. What do you guys think?
I see that report as just another check off on the list of are we there yet? The CBI obviously is hit. I mean, just get close, but they just hit it right in the middle when it comes to maintaining the inflation rate as low as possible. Inflation is not going to be an adherence to the Central Bank of Iraq making a massive monetary change. Inflation is not even considered any concern at all with that report.
Well, I agree with both of those assessments. To me, this was huge from the standpoint that we see so many articles complaining about how devastating the duties are going to be at customs to the Iraqi people when they have to import so much of their food, and yet we see the cost of food going down in Iraq, and so that's telling me, just like Robert said, this is not getting passed on to the consumer and like everyone was anticipating, and so it's just not become the issue that we hear about, read about, that are portending dire circumstances for the Iraqi people, especially the low-income people.
And Dave, to add to this particular report, we were just talking about determinants. Well, there's not a bigger determinant as far as at least Dr. Shabibi, is quoted many times of outlining than their inflation rate. So, I mean, this is between the poverty article, which is a huge exchange rate determinant, and this inflation rates. You couldn't, if you were sitting down trying to draw better news and better trending right here, these two things, I don't think you could do it if you tried.
Totally agree. Good stuff. Hey, for a second, if you don't mind, what is the determinants? What is it that creates a rate? And I know I'm jumping ship on you guys, but if you Google it, and I know Rcookie, you've kind of talked with me privately a little bit when we would all talk, but you can go and there's a certain amount of things that determine what an exchange rate would be for a particular company. For example, our country. For example, like in Iraq, if you took the top 10, if I remember correctly, oil is not even in the top 10 for one of the determinants, if I understand that right. Can you explain that a little bit, please? And it may help a lot of people in understanding.
Well, we did a show about
right.
a previous show about those things, but I mean the things that are listed as exchange rate determinants most frequently in from economists that comment on this kind of stuff are things like inflation rates and poverty levels and education levels and unemployment levels and their GDP and things like the exchange rates of their border partners and the exchange rates of their the currency value of their border partners and the currency values of their trade partners. All of those kinds of things come into play when they formulate what a country's currency should be valued at.
Great, and that's the reason I asked the question. I see a lot of stuff that comes out on the Internet. It actually creeps into either the chat room or it makes its way into the Dinar Facebook side as well, Dinar Updates Facebook side. And they're thinking as soon as oil hits 60, we're going to have a great rate and it's going to pop it and make things happen. And, and it was interesting to go back and recover that area.
That's a great point, Hutch, because there's the perfect example. If oil and the price of oil was the driving determinant, right?
I know where you're going. Yep, great.
I mean, Day, what was oil, 3 years ago?
It's $120.
Right. I mean, so
seems like that would have been a good time.
Why would they wait? Cognitively, why would they wait from when oil was at 120 for it to sink down as low as when it got to 29 and now it's climbing back up a little bit? Who does that make sense to?
Right, totally agree.
Well, there's everything that Robert mentioned can probably be totaled up into four different metrics. And GDP is first and foremost one of a huge determinant, but that encompasses so many different things. It's a representation of the basic size of an economy, which is going to include trade balance, which is exports and versus imports. Is there a positive trade balance or a negative trade balance? Then CPI, Consumer Price Index, is another one, and that's used to track price changes and which includes inflation rates. Then you have Producer Price Index, which is what does it cost a producer to manufacture whatever product they have, and all those three metrics really include virtually everything that Robert talked about, and that's those are the three elements that I see going into forecasting an exchange rate.
Great. Well, Mr. White?
None of those said oil, did they? Oil's in there, but it's not the primary determinant.
Right.
And I think we would be wrong, in my opinion, if we think that they are just now sitting around trying to determine what their true value of their currency is.
Right.
They've been working on that since we got into this game.
And it's probably a never-ending
path. And they'll continue to do it afterwards.
Exactly.
Because these are the metrics that the IMF is mandating that they track. All those things that make up GDP or CPI or PPI, all of the internal data within those three indicators are what the IMF is mandating that they track and improve their data collection and data processing.
Totally agree. Wow, this is turning into a pretty good call pretty quick. That's it of the news articles that I brought in that we talked about. The only other thing that I have is a question from Flynn, who was wondering, has anyone been talking about seeing the budget? I know there's an article that came out, that talked about the budget and why, and others are wanting to know why hasn't it been signed by the president, and others are saying, they're coming in from other sites and saying, oh, it's already been signed and it's happening today, and so on and so on. And I know. But can we address that some? The budget has not, been signed yet, if I understand it right. Can you guys kind of address some of that?
And I'll let Alan and Day get in here, but just real quick, if there is in the newsroom, One Bobby brought in a phenomenal article about Masood not signing the, that it's still in the Finance Committee. He's not signed it yet, and the actual process that the budget goes through on a minute-by-minute basis, the path that it takes. It's almost like the old Schoolhouse Rock, I'm just a bill, how a bill becomes a law kind of a thing. It's like a synopsis like that. It's really well done, and you should check it out.
Yeah. Effectively, the budget hasn't reached him yet, according to the article.
Right.
Well, and I see a ton of people complaining. Yeah. It's the same old Iraq. The politicians are crooked, and and they're going to sit on it.
Yeah. Earlier,
if somebody said it's the same old Iraq, we need names and phone numbers.
We've got about 8,000 articles to send them.
Don't get Alan started with his shotgun either.
And I'm breaking open those new shells.
That's right.
Going for the buckshot. I saw in the chat earlier today somebody commented about just another roadblock, and my question, in all sincerity, was, what roadblock? What does this have to do with anything? I mean, if it truly impacts what we're looking for, please inform me. If anything, I'm impressed that like what you just said earlier, when Bobby brought that article in and explains to you what are they doing? They're following the Constitution.
Yes.
They are actually. This is great. This is enormous. That every day that they go through the process of what they do, even here in the last closing hours of getting their budget done, is good for them, because they're finding out they can get this stuff done by following their Constitution instead of going home and grabbing their AK-47 and taking, So,
but one of the things that I liked about this, Alan, was the fact that they're very much aware that they need this budget in the Gazette, operational and executable for the benefit of the country, but they recognize that they have to follow the rules to get it done correctly. Otherwise, they're going to be dealing with problems for the entire year.
Yeah, you're right.
Right. And Luke just brought an article in about that.
Well, and what was good about that too, Dave, was the fact that they actually sort of keynote previous years where they've done exactly that. They cite that as precedent, where they waited till such and such a time to get it out there, and then by that time, the 60 days that it requires for the disbursement, to the ministries and so forth, it doesn't afford enough. It hasn't afforded enough time, and it caused the problems that you just outlined. So,
well, and understand too, guys, that just because the budget has not been posted in the Gazette, the Council of Ministers can still distribute funds for the operating expenses of the government. Now, they can't do anything with any investment funds or along those lines. They still have to pay their bills, and they're authorized to do that, even though the budget is not published in the Gazette and operational.
Yes,
I agree.
Sir.
Yep, I agree. In fact, let me ask a question, and remember we used to joke about it from time to time about me putting the crash test dummy suit on for asking the dumb questions at times. But that being said, I remember, a year or so ago, when we had an issue going on here in the United States that the budget has not passed, and basically the government may be broke within 10 days, or if you guys remember all of that. Okay. But did the Federal Reserve...
Government's already broke.
Well, yeah.
Already broke.
But you know what I'm saying. But my question is this. Did the Federal Reserve stop while that was going on?
Did the USD stop changing in value on the Forex?
On a daily basis?
Nope.
1,000 times a day on Forex.
Exactly.
Up and down, up and down, up and down. And where did we get the money to pay for that?
Yeah, exactly. And so here's the question, is that the same scenario then? CBI is doing their thing, the government's got their thing going on, but they're two separate entities.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. Then that didn't hurt a bit. I didn't crash at all.
That's right.
You didn't even put a dent on your helmet.
Don't talk about dents right now. At any rate, anything else you guys would like to cover? I think tonight's been a pretty good call. For the record, I'll say this real quick. I had all of the guys mad at me today because we didn't do a pre-call, and we went live without. Everyone was on quarantine today. But I think I think the call itself went over fairly well. Any final comments or anything final that you guys, Rcookie or Mr. White or Daytrader, that you'd like to cover?
Not me. I think we covered a very wide range of topics.
A lot of ground.
This evening.
Mr. White, that sounded like somebody putting a shotgun or a shotgun shell into a chamber. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go look for that four-legged animal on my own, I guess.
Hey, guys, I'm just going to say this because I'm blown away by when Hutch just said a couple minutes ago about there's some people in there that say, same old Iraq and, and that kind of a thing. And, when you've got, if you can point to me any time in the past, you've got an article that talks about the U.S. State Department making a bold statement that Iraq is a phenomenal long-term investment. It provides phenomenal long-term investment opportunities. Okay, that's from the U.S. State Department. You've got a situation where the people within the U.S. Treasury, spokesmen in the U.S. Treasury, talking about the leaps and bounds that Iraq has come in their banking sector which was once, probably one of the most corrupt, sectors in the world, on the planet. Let me just read this to you really quick. Here's one that's talking about 2017 and the forecast for 2017. This is a direct quote. It says, the year will see a recovery in the capital market with the trend to increase foreign exchange and provide the sale of citizens' outlets as well as the keenness of the central bank to maintain the value of the Iraqi dinar and the dollar exchange rate. It says, warning that 2017 will witness a greater reliance on technology in financial transactions as well as facilitate the citizens in banking transactions, likely to witness the Iraq Stock Exchange traded wider than last year, which saw trading trillion shares of joint stock companies in it because of the direction of the state moved to a market economy. Okay? Tell me how any of that, between the State Department, between the U.S. Treasury and the statements that they're making, between the things that you hear out of the IMF and the World Bank and the progress that they've made and the fiscal discipline that they've pursued and built into their system here, and then things like this from their own people, statements like this of where they're going to be in 2017. How is there something construed negative or the same old Iraqis, like a bunch of slackers? How do you get there from that information?
Robert, I was thinking about that today.
Lack of education.
I think a lot of the investors that are in now, and some of them are even on our chat room, they're very similar to adolescence in that history began today. There's no history prior to today. So they have nothing to go on other than what they don't read today or what gurus are telling them. And, as far as I know, Iraq's a slacker has always been a slacker based on history that began today. So.
Right.
Great point.
That was all in jest, though.
Yes,
Well,
okay.
Here's one, Alan. We were talking before about the the Fox News reporting late on the whole Ramadi situation and everything. I mean, how do you look at an article that was posted today, like about the Anbar province recruiting, or the government recruiting investment from foreign companies, when it seems like we just got done reading about Anbar, and the different areas of Anbar province being eradicated with ISIS, and here they are in this short of a time span, basically, trying to recruit and capture, foreign investment, and the talk of opening up that border crossing with Jordan. The progress that they've made is so just ridiculous, spectacular. I just don't understand. You literally almost have to try to put a spin on it to not see it. It's at least in my eyes, anyhow.
Not everyone has a good day every day, I suppose. And again, I think it's somewhat lack of education or lack of comprehending, what's been, brought in, and what all the hard work that you guys do to bring all the news in, and then to educate and explain it as best as you can. And I'll see that sometimes, and someone will make a comment, and I'll ask, I'll say, do you guys listen to the calls? And of course they reply us, no, I don't have time for that. Or it's past my. I saw one guy come in and say, that's past my bedtime. Well, if I remember correctly, BGG has a recording button over there, and he records this, and you can listen to it the next day. But instead they just rather make a comment, as opposed to learning something. And then Holly makes a comment right here. She says they know how not to say the truth as much as a spin they add. No wonder the brain don't function. Okay. So I'll close with that, unless you guys have more. Excuse me. I'm still trying to get rid of this cold that I've got, so I apologize. With that, I'd like to thank all of you guys for all of your hard work that you put in on a daily basis, and I know it's a daily basis because I'm there with you. And all the work that BGG puts into the site, all the work that the people over on the Facebook side do as well. They bring in a lot of stuff, and a lot of our guys cross over to the Dinar Updates Facebook and back and forth. Julian Washington does a great job over there. Kathy Keller, of course, Pat and One Bobby, do their news time on Thursdays. They do an incredibly great job, and Andrew Bartles. I think he goes by News Flash or something to that effect.
AB News Flash.
That's it, AB News Flash. So again, on behalf of all of us, we want to thank all of you. And then, of course, all of our mods and copiers in the chat room. They do a great job over there. They work tirelessly. And so I want to thank you guys, and everyone. Be sure to hug your mods, whether it's on either side of the fence there, if there is a fence, on the Facebook side or the Dinar Updates chat room side. Make sure you hug your mods. They're doing this for free, guys, and they're staying up later than you are and getting up earlier than you are, and still making sure that everything's there at your convenience. So be sure you thank those guys. With that,
and Hutch,
yes, sir.
Before we take off, I just want to give a special shout out to our very important friend Loop, who we want to send our love and support out to Loop, who's just amazing. The stuff that he does on the other side with the news every day. So just wanted to say that.
And wanted to say something at the same time. Wasn't sure how you felt about that. So I totally agree with that, and our thoughts and prayers are out for Loop and his family right now. And with that, I'm going to now see where BGG is. Hopefully he's running around with a big red button to where and hopefully he'll just push the button one day and we can be done with this thing. But for the time being, let's just be done with the call. BGG, are you around?
I am. Appreciate you guys. You did a fantastic job. Everybody on Dinar Updates who makes it the website that it is, thank you so much. Stay tuned to DU for more Dinar news, Dinar info, and Dinar commentary. We will continue bringing it as we're able. Have a great evening.